Good morning, everyone. We are here for the first episode of APTv.6 version 6, Viewpoints of Forerunners, the future of the agriculture and food systems. The UPLB College of Agriculture and Food Science has invited the biggest names in the agriculture sector to share their visions. My name is Jaya Lapis. I am an extension associate from the Institute of Plant Breeding, and I will be your host for this episode. Before we get started, a few things to keep in mind throughout the forum. Please mute your microphone during the presentations. Participants may add comments and give input to the presentation throughout the virtual forum. We will have a question and answer portion after each speaker during the Q&A, so you can ask questions, so feel free to submit in the Q&A portion or chat box for Zoom or in the comment section for Facebook and YouTube. Participants also have the option to use the raise hand icon in Zoom to ask a question and wait to be acknowledged by the moderator. And last but not the least, as part of UPLB's effort to provide you with timely topics and interesting speakers, we'd appreciate it if you could fill out the evaluation form by scanning the QR code or clicking on the link to get the evaluation forms. A certificate of participation will be given after completing the form. Without further ado, I would like to call on our beloved CAPS Dean, Dr. Elpidio M. Agbisit Jr., to share his opening remarks.
Sound check. Jaya, do you hear me properly?
Loud and clear, sir.
To our discerning and insightful speakers for today, Department of Agriculture Secretary, Dr. William D. Dar, and academician, Eufemio T. Rasco. To the man behind Future-Proofing UPLB, Chancellor Jose V. Camacho Jr. To the women behind this webinar series, CAPS Associate Deans Dr. Barbara L. Kawili and Dr. Edelisa A. Dorado. For our hosts in our first episode, OIC Director Fed de la Cueva and the Institute of Plant Breeding. To the men and women of the College of Agriculture and Food Science. To our guests, friends, partners, and participants to the sixth season of AGIP's Talk, our rebooting in the new normal web fresher courses. An insightful morning to all. Hope everyone is safe and healthy, and the ECQ has not dampened our spirit to learn. On behalf of the College of Agriculture and Food Science, I wish to express my gratitude and happiness that you are still with us in the brand new season of our webinar series entitled Viewpoints of the Forerunners, Futures of Agriculture and Food Systems, which aims to orient each one of us on the different knowledge and challenges encompassing the agriculture and food systems to help us have insights on the futures of this system, understand its complexity, satisfy the multidisciplinary outcomes, and identify possible leverage points that can help us achieve the transformational change in our food system to be ready for Agriculture 5.0 or other disturbances that may affect the system in the future. This is also in line with the program of the university, the UPLB Futures Thinking Program, a pioneering initiative as foresight for food security in the country. With this, we know, together with all the participants, we will learn from the experts invited as they are the best in their field. Again, to our speakers, thank you for allotting some of your valuable time to share your insights in this webinar. We are also happy to see the youth. Majority of the 425 registered participants for today are interested to learn about agriculture and now preparing to take the lead towards food-secured Philippines. As a food for thought before I end, remember that a system cannot be controlled, but it can be redesigned. Commonly, we call this dancing with the system. Let us have an open mind and heart and learn to dance with the Philippine food system. May all our ambitions and aspirations come true. Hiraya Manawari, God bless us all. Good morning again to everyone. Jaya?
Thank you so much, Dean Agbisit. We will surely look forward to the next episodes of this series. We are fortunate this morning to also be joined by the UPLB Chancellor, Jose V. Camacho Jr., through a welcome message.
Good morning, Jaya, at maraming salamat. Let me first greet our Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, the Honorable Secretary William Dar, and our very own NAST, National Academy of Science and Technology, academician and UP Mindanao Professor Emeritus, Dr. Efemio Rasco Jr., and to the Dean of the College of Agriculture and Food Science, very hardworking, Dr. Elpidio Agbisit Jr., and to the officer in charge of the Institute of Plant Breeding, Dr. Fe de la Cueva, and to all participants and attendees of the Agis PS Talk series. Again, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. It is indeed my pleasure to give you this talk and welcome you today in this webinar entitled Viewpoints of Forerunners, Future of Agriculture and Food Systems. I am very delighted about the theme because as we have envisioned to future-proof UPLB, such vision aims to future-proof in the final analysis, food systems, our food security. Today's seminar is very important as it will serve as a prelude to a planning workshop for the recently formed UPLB Futures Thinking Committee that we have formed last March, focusing on future-proofing, futures thinking, research and innovation for food systems and security. Led by Dean Agbisit, the committee's goal is to develop sustainable, inclusive, and effective programs, policies, and innovations that will not just answer the Philippine agriculture sector's most pressing concerns, but will also contribute to future-proofing the country's food security and food system. That committee that we have formed is interdisciplinary and has representatives from various units of the university consisting of economists, plant breeding experts, extension experts, and policy and public policy experts. Earlier activities that promote the culture of futures thinking in the university have already taken place with the help of the Philippine Futures Thinking Society and the Office of Senator Pia Cayetano. And it is only timely and relevant that we pursue the new idea of futures thinking, which is so aligned with this administration's vision of future-proofing the university's instruction, research, and public service, which, among others, would target the agricultural sector. All of these are directed to fulfill our mandate as the national and being a public service university. Today is a great opportunity to learn from two of the most respected thought leaders, I would say influential, in the agricultural sector, Secretary Dar and academician Rasco. And I'm certain that they will inspire the Futures Thinking Committee to lay the groundwork for their task ahead. Our speakers' experiences and wisdom on Philippine agriculture's past, present, and future will surely guide us in our way forward. I therefore encourage our webinar attendees to participate fully, actively in the open forum and take this opportunity to be a part of the national discourse on the future of Philippine agriculture. I commend CAFs led by Dean Agbisit for providing avenues such as the Aggie PS Talk, where we are able to focus on pressing and in-depth issues in agriculture. And I hope that today's edition will result in better innovative ideas that could help uplift us all, especially the agricultural sector, during and after this pandemic. Let us do our part to contribute to a strong, sustainable, and future-proof Philippine agriculture. Thank you, stay safe, at mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Camacho. We now have 100 participants across all our platforms, and we're very excited because we're sure that more will come as we continue on with the webinar. To commemorate this episode, we would like to request the panelists to turn on their cameras so we can have a photo-taking session. Let's just wait for the others to open their cameras. Okay po, 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, thank you po. Thank you, panelists. I'm sure everyone's excited to hear from our speakers, so I'll introduce the first one. William Dolente Dar served for the second time as the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture. His first stint as Agri-Chief was in 1998 to 1999 under the administration of President Joseph Ejercito Estrada. To date, he is the only Filipino who has led a global agricultural research institute, the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, headquartered in India. He served for 3 consecutive 5-year terms from 2000 to 2014. His extensive research and professional experience include crop management, farming systems development, and technology sharing and upscaling. Dr. Dar earned his bachelor's degree in agricultural education in 1969 and master's degree in agronomy in 1976 at the then Mountain State Agricultural College, now known as Benguet State University or BSU in La Trinidad, Benguet. At BSU, he started as a researcher and instructor in 1979 and rose to become Professor 6 and Vice President for the Research and Development Support Services in 1985. In between those years, Dr. Dar pursued his doctorate degree in horticulture at UPLB, completing it in 1980. When the DA was reorganized in 1987, Dr. Dar was appointed as the first director of the DA Bureau of Agricultural Research. He also served as executive director of PICARD from 1994 to 1998. He received 8 honorary doctorate degrees in various fields from several state universities and colleges in the Philippines. And in December 2016, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte honored Dr. Dar with the 2016 Outstanding Filipino Award for his exemplary achievements and selfless dedication to his profession that made significant contributions to the betterment of his countrymen and to his country as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, DA Secretary William D. Dar.
Maraming salamat. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And let me greet our very hardworking Chancellor of UPLB, Chancellor Dong Camacho, and the other officials of UPLB, the likes of the Dean of the College of Agriculture and Food, Dean Agbisit, and the panelists of today's important video conference with this title, The Mind and Science of Innovations. Let me begin by expressing my appreciation for the honor of addressing you today. I'm sure that all of you participating in this important forum realize that you are part of a long tradition your studies and your various curricular programs form part of an endeavor, a tradition started by some of the most prominent names in the field of agriculture in the Philippines, including that of Dr. Eupemula Rasco. I hope you feel a sense of pride in being part of that tradition. I want to express the Duterte's administration's appreciation for what you are doing and what you will do for our country in the days ahead. And this forum will define or identify the way forward in terms of what is that kind of agriculture that we want to see a generation from now or more. There are a few things, next slide. There are a few things that make me more hopeful about the future than seeing young people studying to bring science and innovation to our agriculture sector. So there is this very popular quotation by Steve Jobs. Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. And I believe that as an institution, UPLB is a leader and will continue to be the leader given the future-proofing directions that you are starting to pursue, and including that of course, futures thinking, as has been mentioned by the Chancellor Dong Camacho. So let me, as I've said, UP Los Baños, being part of the UP system and autonomously is one of the top Philippine universities in research productivity in science, engineering, and health. And this is found and mentioned by the Institutes for Research, Innovation, and Scholarship, IRIS. So I believe that you would like always to go much higher than where you are today by way of reinventing or strengthening existing programs, curricular programs, including that of your science and innovations or research for development for that matter. This is the first challenge I would like to pose the university, UPLB. What is the role of higher educational institution broadly, okay? Because I have been moving around the country, strengthening the partnership between the Department of Agriculture and that of the universities and colleges in agriculture, or broadly higher educational institutions. I always ask this question: are the universities part in solving poverty, ending poverty? Are the universities part in enhancing economic development? Now, this leads to the very outcome of, say, universities in terms of producing, developing quality human capital. So creating a quality workforce is one of the keys to enhancing that engagement of the university to economic development and ending poverty. Well, why did I mention poverty here? Because still poverty is the number one problem in the country today. Ang kahirapan. Okay, even for example, asking ourselves, have we been apart? I mean, I'm talking about UPLB. a part of transforming Los Baños as a municipality, or the whole of province of Laguna, just to highlight a case in point. So have we measured the degree of contribution to this transformation of the municipality or the province? If we have not done much, even in our municipality where we are hosted, or in the province where we must have the impact area of all our offerings, curricular, all our research for development or extension services, then I would say we have not done so much, and we have to rethink, because that's very simple. Again, much more in the future, are we really impacting? Are we creating more of the enhanced transformation of the agriculture and rural areas, for example? And for that matter, seeing to it that the universities continue to drive innovation system. And of course, as I've mentioned, and I've seen the facts, that UPLB has been one, or I would say the national university in agriculture, in agricultural innovation system, in research. But again, I would highly mention research for development must be the paradigm this time around. Now, increasing employability of the graduates. You know, only 10 to 15% of our graduates in general are employed with government, but majority of our graduates are there not properly employed. They are underemployed or no employment at all. And so, have we considered this in strengthening our curricular programs so that not only employability will be enhanced, but even entrepreneurship as a paradigm will be now greatly considered by UPLB. So down the line, we need to continue feeding into the knowledge-based economy of the country, but seeing to it that this knowledge and technologies must contribute to economic development, much more reducing, if not ending, poverty. Now, this I would like to say that these are the pathways for higher educational institutions to be guided accordingly. You know, when you do quality research, you know, quality teaching and innovation also is present. When you do and you have quality teaching and innovation, then this will result to quality human capital. And when you have quality human capital, this will attract investments and will lead to economic development, thereby eradicating poverty. So presently, we continue at the Department of Agriculture to influence also policy shifts from the present to much higher elevated development of the sector of agriculture. So these are after the initial bout that we have with this COVID-19 pandemic, having to have now a new food security development framework. We saw to it that we adjust ourselves, our programs, plans and programs on this food systems policy shift to sustainably feed a growing population in the new normal. So I hope the university also aligns itself and even create much more of these policy shifts as a result of your research for development. Now, even starting this year, transforming the new thinking that we had, because the new thinking is, I would consider, sowing the seeds, so to speak, for us to transform Philippine agriculture under one DA reform agenda, pillars and key strategies. So here you can see 4 pillars with various key strategies underneath. And again, the importance of quality human capital developed by higher educational institution is key, and that is the pillar of professionalization, and towards doing much of these big strategies like farm consolidation, modernization of the sector, and industrialization. So that vision of a food secure and resilient Philippines with empowered and prosperous farmers and fishers will happen. So this is what I say, sowing the seeds for the future, and hoping that the higher educational institutions and or UPLB for that matter will be our big partner to make it possible to populate knowledge, information, strategies, approaches to make it possible to enhance this, because we feel that this will be the basic foundation of Philippine agriculture transforming to a more modern, more productive, competitive, resilient, and sustainable agriculture. This is the evolving Philippine food systems. We are a part of the UN Food Systems Summit. We have conducted national food systems dialogues relevant to having now to institutionalize our thinking towards agri-food systems. So again, this will only happen much more with interventions or contributions in a big way by higher educational institutions like that of the UP Los Baños. I hope that the National University in Agriculture like UPLB will be, really trailblazing in many respects towards this healthier people, healthier economy, and healthier planet. Based from these dialogues that we have been doing these last 2 months in relation towards the UN Food Systems Summit action tracks, 5 of them are being highlighted, and these are the action areas related to the action tracks that we would like to pursue with you. Again, sowing the seeds for the future for Philippines food systems. So action track 1 is all about access to safe, nutritious food for all. 2 is sustainable consumption. 3 is nature positive production. 4 is livelihoods and equality. And 5, resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks, and stresses. So down below are various action areas that we are populating. Again, this time around, UPLB must come forward. Present yourselves to giving the best of knowledge and information so that we are going to have that kind of future agriculture that we want to have 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So research for development and techno transfer will be necessary to enhance our key strategies in relation to these various action areas. It's never too early in life to make a difference, but we have to be purposeful. We have to be, having that foresight, that innovative mind to really create that kind of agriculture we want, that, we should envision a more prosperous countryside, more sustainable, more healthy in the light of all of these pandemics that we have. Even, for example, we are not only experiencing COVID-19 pandemic, but there is also one pandemic in the world today in regard to agriculture, and that's the African swine fever. And, this African swine fever is existing starting from Kenya 100 years ago, and, journeying around the globe, around this planet, and wreaking havoc now to Philippine economy in livestock subsector, which is contributing more than 16% to the gross value added in agriculture. Now, in this connection, in regard to transboundary diseases and pests, we are creating the institutions for the future now. We have set up a center for transboundary animal diseases hosted in CLSU, but the higher level of Zoonosis Institute will be set up in partnership and to be hosted by UP Los Baños, including that of the facility level 3 that could develop vaccines for these problems in animals. I have also mentioned UPLB must elevate itself much more the National Crop Protection Center of UPLB to become the transboundary center for plants, diseases, and insects. So let's elevate our game. Next slide. There are many innovations taking place, but hoping with now this mindset of having to be a part to solving big development challenges, like what I have mentioned. Even now, there are many transboundary pests and diseases in crops that we are observing. And so really innovation system is necessary. We need to modernize the food systems and seeing to it that the newer disruptive technologies can also be utilized in a big way and continue to innovate, continue to do technology development in terms of digital agriculture, disruptive technologies, and the like. Now, is urban agriculture key for the future? I would say yes. And one of the models I would like to highlight is the one being promoted, advocated by UPLB. And we have to agree with you. Last night, I mentioned to the cabinet in my report that we need to upscale urban agriculture. And because in urban areas, there's so much, population to feed, we have to tap the power of vertical farming, precision agriculture, anything that we can do to even solve, having to have urban agriculture, you also solve problems of transport already. So the more we set up big, high-rise urban farms, that would be key to feeding the future much more in urban areas. Now, because of climate change, that we, if there is one big challenge in the world today, it's the impact of climate change. And we need now, even our agriculture has to be more resilient, has to be more smart. We have to create more, enhance resiliency of the farming and fishing sector, resiliency of the agricultural villages, so that they are able to adapt and be a part of the mitigation process to really reduce our carbon footprints in this planet. So climate change innovations are key in really having this kind of future agriculture that we have to have. So you are among Philippine agriculture's brightest hopes. Kayo po ay dapat trailblazers at umaasa po kami, UPLB, you should be more relevant, not only excellent. So ang partnership natin will continue. Our commitments are always there to enhance the research for development program of UPLB so that you can be more, impacting to the farming and fishing communities. And this is something very important to mention. As I've said in the beginning, nung una pa itong aking engagement with you today, sinabi ko na you need to reach out, you need to impact into the growth of your municipality, your province, and the region, if not the country, the whole country. Your researches must not end up in publications alone. We know that's important to publish. We know it is important to put them in libraries, but it is also important that these technologies and innovations must reach the grassroots and will impact into the growth and development of the Philippine agriculture. So I was mentioning kanina, disruptive technologies that have now been developed somewhere else. We need to bring them here and adapt them to Philippine conditions. Those that are relevant, let's continue to scale up its use and see to it that we be a part of the development process of disruptive technologies for agriculture and rural development. So working together towards prosperity, development, reform, science, and innovation will be key. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas.
Thank you so much, Secretary Dar, for your insightful vision for the agriculture sector and how UPLB can contribute to it through working together. I'm sure the participants are excited for the open forum. For the participants, please be reminded to type in your questions in the Q&A portion for Zoom or in the comment section for the Facebook and YouTube. Or if you wish to ask your questions live, you may click the raise hand button on your Zoom screen. Serving as moderator for the open forum is a university researcher at the Institute of Plant Breeding of Calves. Let's welcome Dr. Mary Ann McKillan.
Thank you, Jaya. Hello and good morning. Welcome to our open forum. And we just heard the presentation of Secretary Dar on the food systems topic. Thank you very much, Secretary Dar, for your analysis and important suggestion on how we can effectively sow the seeds of the future to transform agriculture to be more resilient, productive, and sustainable. And we do highlight the importance of working together. To safeguard food systems, we cannot do things by ourselves, so we have to work together. Now, Secretary Dar will answer some questions that were sent to us during the presentation. Do we have questions from our participants? Okay, so let me ask the question first from an anonymous attendee. You mentioned that higher education institutions play a big role in driving the innovation system in transforming Philippine agriculture. Has there been ongoing discussions with higher education institutions offering agriculture about this?
Well, as I've said, I've been interacting in my rounds to the regions as well. The need for higher educations, not only to produce any kind of human capital, but produce human capital, quality human capital that have this heart and mind to be part of enhancing and developing the country's economy and be part of solving the very big issues like that of poverty. Otherwise, yung ating existence is not complete. And so we, through the various programs and projects of DA, this is one way to impacting or advocating yung dapat na paradigm shift na mangyari ng mga universities and colleges. I've been writing about this even in my weekly column before becoming again Secretary of Agriculture. Yung sinasabi natin na employability is okay, but not enough, because employability, if we define it as joining government and private institutions, it's not enough because there is only limited positions available. And so you need to broaden the mindset and broaden the paradigm of the university by having to institutionalize the entrepreneurial spirit or paradigm. So yes, we are even having inclusive agribusiness innovation hubs, yung mga inclusive agribusiness enterprises that we are working together. So yung modeling would be necessary for universities also to get engaged.
Thank you for answering the question, Secretary Dar. Very interesting perspective. Do we have more questions? Okay, Secretary Dar, this question might interest our agricultural researchers. So which crops are being prioritized by the Department of Agriculture to enable food security, nutrition-sensitive agriculture, and profitability for the farmer?
Yeah, we are finalizing our strategic plan and directions, and therein we are identifying where we must focus on, because there's so much, too many commodities. For example, in high-value agriculture, ano dapat? Okay, for example, yung onions ay 90% sufficiency level natin na ngayon. So pwede itong i-develop to become 100% or nearby. But what about garlic? We need to analyze garlic production in the country. Where are we in garlic? We only produce about 6-7%. So it's a long way to produce our requirement in garlic. So we are now trying to analyze the situation. And we say garlic may have a niche because of the kind of variety that we grow. But for our consumption, we have to bring from the outside. So we need to have critical analysis on all of these commodities. Cacao, coffee would be very important. Yung mga export products, we have to generate more for the economy. Banana, mango. We are now exporting okra. So we have this good list. Of course, rice, corn. Sa corn naman, okay, another perspective sa corn. We only produce 57% of our corn requirements. So much of that supply augmentation for feeds come from feed wheat. Now, that's one of the problems of the livestock industry. We have corn producers that need to elevate their competitiveness so that they can be really competing with the global market. So many things, many cases you can mention.
Thank you for the answer, Secretary Dar. That's very useful and complete response to priority crops question. So you've mentioned about the food security development framework. Could you maybe elaborate more on that? Is there or has there been a change in DA's priorities to ensure more sustainable and resilient food systems, especially during this time of pandemic?
You know, this Philippine Food Security Development Framework ay napanganak nung kasagsagan nung pagpasok ng pandemya. So in the mid-year last year, we had a good consultation process, and we also even went to the extent of having it approved with the IATF. So today, this is one of the at saka nagkaroon tayo ng Food Security Summit in 2019 and followed up by another food summit this year. So ito na yung kinalabasan. Where is that food security framework? This is not the one.
Great,
Paul.
many thanks, Secretary Dar.
Ipapakita ko yung framework, please. So dito sa framework, nasaan na, Paul? No. There are key areas to look at. Anyway, nasaan na? Nahulo. Itong mga ideas nito, kagaya ng modernization, industrialization, these are, ito na po, okay, para for the whole university to appreciate and internalize. You know, we are in a pandemic, so we need to survive, but at the same time reboot and grow the sector. So we devised and put up formulated socioeconomic recovery and resiliency programs in agriculture with these objectives. And the strategies would be, again, these areas of farm consolidation, modernization, industrialization, export promotion, infrastructure development. And there are enablers, of course, budget and investments, legislative support, and roadmap development. And these are down below, the key RAs. So even the vision has now evolved to include empowerment of the fisher folks and the farmers, and resiliency is now part of that vision. So ito po ay continue to be now one of the anchors. From here on, it will now be considering yung food systems action tracks na nasabi ko kanina. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Dar. We have a question from one of our participants.
Can I have the last question, because I have to go to a public hearing and make the introductory.
All right. Okay. So since this is guiding research directions for UPLB CAFs, let's turn into the role of higher education institutions. Here's a question here from one of our participants. With respect to producing high-quality graduates from higher education institutes, is there a plan, policy-wise, to harmonize the curriculum of agriculture in different universities in the Philippines to gear towards climate resilient and sustainable agriculture and food systems?
That's
that
On-
recently
on-
the headline.
that should depend on, again, the partnership between higher educational institutions and the Department of Agriculture. We will do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Dar. So that finishes our Q&A session on food systems. At this point, I would like to ask my colleague at IPB and host Jaya to come back to the Zoom space for the next part of the program. Jaya, the Zoom space is yours.
Thank you, Doc Mehmet. We learned a lot from our first speaker, and I'm sure we'll learn more from the next. So without further ado, I'll introduce the next speaker. Our guest speaker is recognized for his pioneering and outstanding contributions in the field of plant breeding, specifically tropical vegetables and tropical white potato breeding. He is a member and a chair of the Agricultural Sciences Division of the National Academy of Science and Technology, the advisory body to the President of the Republic of the Philippines, and Cabinet on policies concerning science and technology in the country. He is also the chair of the Technical Committee for Agricultural Sciences of the Scientific Career System. Our speaker grew up as a rice farmer but started a decades-long career in scientific agriculture when he was awarded a full scholarship at the UP College of Agriculture. He took up Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, major in Animal Science from the then UPCA, and graduated magna cum laude. He then earned his master's degree in plant physiology from UP Los Baños and his doctoral degree in plant breeding and international agriculture from Cornell University, USA. His career spanned working as a researcher and teacher for the academe from UPLB and UP Mindanao, for the private industry in the East-West Seed Company, and for the government in the Philippine Rice Research Institute, and also for international research service centers or the International Potato Center. At present, he is an active advocate of a food system that nurtures consumer and environmental health, adapts to climate change, and is respectful of traditional food habits. He leads a multi-sectoral team preparing a foresight for feeding Metro Manila in 2050. Ladies and gentlemen, Academician Eufemio T. Rasco Jr. Sir Dong, I think your microphone is on mute po.
But we need to explore the science behind these things. By the way, science and technology led multi-sectoral with the title Feeding Metro Manila. This slide shows the vision as we imagine. Note the circularity, the central role of consumers, and feedback loops. The vision looks forward to the time when food systems will be built. An empowered consumer and farmers providing leadership. This is a radical departure from the present system where the industry and the industry, how it is brought to our plates and how much we pay for it. I will not dwell on this vision in its entirety. Rather, I refer you to the National Academy of Science and Technology. The NAS vision describes 4 features of a transformed food system. We can look at this as guide.
Excuse me po, Sir
For
Dong. Is it
those
alright
who
if
are
you
on
share
board.
your screen again?
First is second, justice for farmers. 3, health of the environment. And lastly, nurturing just 2 years.
Dr. Rasco,
The transformation of food system.
is it okay to reshare your screen and check the share sound? Medyo malabo po kasi yung audio sa amin, hindi po ata nag-share yung sound.
A series of dialogues focused on the food systems theme. In these dialogues,
Pagka-share screen po, sir, may magpa-pop pong box and then pa-check po yung share sound sa leftmost part po ng dialog box.
let me thank the College of Agriculture and Food Science for this opportunity to share ideas about food system transformation. The title of my talk says it all. Our food future can be guided by tradition, but we need to explore the science behind this tradition. By way of background, in 2019, the National Academy of Science led a sectoral team of 15 organizations in formulating a food systems vision for the Philippines with the title Feeding Metro Manila in 2050. This slide shows the vision as we imagine it. Note the circularity, the central role of consumers, and feedback loops. The vision looks forward to the time when food systems will be built around population centers
But we can't
with
see
an
your screen
empowered
po.
consumer and farmers providing leadership. What's the problem? On the present system.
We can't see your screen po, sir, but we can hear your audio now.
Okay, I tried to record it because I was afraid there might be problems with the live presentation. So because of these problems, let me go live.
Okay po, sir.
Okay. Okay, can you see me now?
We can see you, sir, but we can't see your screen po.
Oh. Okay, we have a problem here. Stop share ko muna and then try it again.
Sir, same problem. If it's okay with you, can you email us your PowerPoint so we can share it?
Okay.
Problem po, sir. Wala po kaming makita sa screen.
Okay. This is the first time it happened. I've been doing this for...
Sir, let me help you troubleshoot. Can you click again the share screen and then go to
I
the
stop share. Okay.
go to the basic tab when you see the pop-up dialog. Doon po kayo mag-share. Baka po sa advance po kayo napunta. Ang na-share nyo po is portion ng screen. Dapat po is slide as, dapat po malaki. So, punta po kayo sa basic, sir, na tab.
Okay.
Then, click nyo po yung gusto nyo pong i-share.
Can you see it now?
Loading, sir. Yes, sir. Better. Sir, can we troubleshoot again? Kasi naging background po siya. One more time, sir. Sir, click po nyo again yung share screen, then balik po kayo sa basic. Tapos click nyo po ulit yung gusto nyo pong i-share.
Okay.
Sir, same problem po. Nagiging portion lang po yung nasi-share.
Okay. Is that better now?
No, sir. We can only see a line po, white line. Sir, maybe it would be faster kung email nyo na po sa akin yung PowerPoint din i-share ko po, kung okay lang po sa inyo. Nakamute po kayo, sir.
I actually recorded it. So what I can do is share with you the recorded material. If that's okay.
Okay. Sir, ito po, last time po. Sir, click nyo po yung share screen. Paki-check po sa advance kung ano po yung nakaklik. Yung second tab po, katabi ng basic. Sa may taas po na portion, yung middle po, yung tatlo. Dapat po hindi po portion ng screen yung nakaklik.
Well, actually, that's what... okay.
Then balik po kayo sa basic. Pag hindi okay na po kayo sa advance, then share screen po ulit tayo.
Okay.
Yan, sir. Buo na po. Then, ano na po natin yung presentation. Tapos, sir, na-share niyo po ba yung sound? Nung nag-share?
Yeah.
Okay po, sir.
North. Let me thank the College of Agriculture and Food Science for this opportunity to share ideas about food system transformation. The title of my talk says it all. Our food future can be guided by tradition, but we need to explore the science behind this tradition. By way of background, in 2019, the National Academy of Science and Technology led a multi-sectoral team of 15 organizations in formulating a food systems vision for the Philippines with the title Feeding Metro Manila in 2050. The slide shows the vision as we imagine it. Note the circularity, the central role of consumers, and feedback loops. The vision looks forward to the time when food systems will be built around population centers with an empowered consumer and farmers providing leadership. This is a radical departure from the present system where the industry and the industry-led globalization movement practically dictate what we eat, how it is brought to our plates, and how much we pay for it. I will not dwell on this vision in its entirety. Rather, I refer you to the website of the National Academy of Science and Technology. The NAST vision describes 4 features of the transformed food system. We can look at this as guide or goals for our own work. First is nutrition and health of consumers. Second, justice for farmers. 3, health of the environment. And lastly, nurturing traditional food culture. I've talked repeatedly over the last 2 years in many webinars about the first 3 features. Thus, I will refer to these features only in passing today. I'm happy to note that no less than the United Nations has championed the transformation of food systems as its theme for this year, recognizing the significance of the features we have adopted for our vision. Next month will be the culmination of a series of dialogues focused on the food systems theme. In these dialogues, concerns about nutrition, justice for farmers, and the health of the environment have been ventilated and now inching into the consciousness of the academe, policymakers, and the general public. Such concern is reflected in slogans such as nutrition-sensitive agriculture, ANI and KITA, and regenerative agriculture. But as we are all aware, these slogans are rather empty. The reality is the exact opposite. Consumers are still malnourished, farmers are still poor, and the environment continues to suffer under the existing food system. Thus, we have a lot to do to steer the transformation of the food system to these 3 objectives. I'm aware that CAPS is very much involved in this effort, and I can only encourage CAPS to strengthen its R&D. My talk today will focus on feature number 4, nurturing traditional food culture. This is one topic that is barely touched in these courses about transforming food systems. Food culture is a concept that we associate with culture or kinagawian rather than science. But I will argue in this talk that there is science behind traditional food culture. This is the science we should not ignore, and instead study and serve as an inspiration if not a template for transforming our food system. My inspiration for this talk is my own backyard. This photo of santol and mabolo fruits on the ground was taken yesterday near UPLB. As you can see, many of the fruits lay on the ground, not because of a typhoon, but because they were over-mature. I could not use all of them, so they were left to rot on the ground. It's not that I did not want to sell or give them away. They are so cheap that it will cost me more to pick them up and bring them to the market than what I will earn from selling them. My own caretaker does not want to eat them. Neighbors who are supposed to be hungry because of the pandemic do not want them either. And I'm reminded that many of our local fruits suffer the same fate. At IPV behind Module B, there are balimbing trees that are so prolific, but the fruits rot on the ground, ignored by everyone. The staff of IPB don't want them. During the mango season, I see mango fruits fallen from trees on the roadways in central and northern Luzon, crushed by vehicles. Usually, these are from varieties that consumers reject, such as the Indian mango. Why are we rejecting this food now? I'm putting emphasis on the word now because I'm convinced that we did not reject them before. In my youth in the Bicol region, we used balimbing as an extender for dinuguan. I used to enjoy ripe balimbing fruits. So with santol, mabolo, chesa, duhat, makopa, and other fruits that are now almost extinct. I planted these rejected trees in my backyard 20 years ago, believing that the next generation will enjoy them as much as I did. Nutritionally, these fruits are superior to many common fruits. A 2016 article published in the Journal of Food and Drug Analysis compared mabolo with persimmon and apples. The first column of the table in this slide shows data for mabolo. The rest of the columns for different varieties of persimmon and apples. I quote from the abstract. Our data shows that mabolo is rich in dietary fiber at 3.2%, and the contents of other nutrients such as malic acid, vitamin B2, vitamin B3, folic acid, pantothenic acid, and choline chloride were high compared to the more popular fruits. Moreover, it is rich in calcium and zinc. Accordingly, the calcium content is about half that of fresh milk, and the zinc content is about half that of oysters. The flavor is like a combination of banana and apple. So why is the the present generation rejecting these fruits? My theory is that we don't want them because we don't recognize them as food anymore. We probably did not introduce them to our children who grew up with fast food. In our collective modern mind, food has become or fast becoming synonymous with rice and chicken, hamburger and chips, and instant noodles, products of the modern fast food system. The fast food items shown on the slide belong to a category that literature refers to as the Western diet, rich in highly processed ingredients such as white rice, white flour, hamburger, unhealthy oils, sugar, and fat. They are cheap, convenient, and tasty. This is so because they are mass-produced in areas with comparative advantage, marketed worldwide, and their ingredients are selected on the basis of maximizing benefits to the food industry. Traditional food in the mind of the present generation must be old-fashioned, not good enough to eat. This impression needs to be corrected. I will argue that we need to nurture fruits such as mabolo, santol, makopa, balimbing, and duhat, vegetables such as saluyot, alugbati, seaweeds, bamboo shoots, and mushrooms, protein-rich legumes such as mango, cowpea, bataw, and kalamismis, and our traditional staples such as kamote and banana. Let us not forget that as an archipelagic country, our ancestors have traditionally relied on fish and other seafoods. Together, this food represents our traditional food culture. First, let me explain the context of the term traditional food culture. Traditional food culture refers to the pattern of production, processing, and consumption that utilizes locally produced materials, including manner of preparation and mix of ingredients. Locally produced materials need not be indigenous to the place, but which, by virtue of similarity between the environment of the place of origin and place of production, have become indigenized. It is composed of dishes and patterns of consumption, that is seasonality, and historically associated with the region. For example, in my childhood, in the Bicol region, our family ate fish 6 days a week, and it is only on Sundays that we get to eat meat. Local could be a geographical or cultural region, varying in size, but sharing common preferences. In the Philippines, native dialect is a convenient but not necessarily accurate way of classifying food cultures. Thus, we have Ilocano, Kapampangan, and Ilonggo food cultures, among others. Traditional food culture can be characterized by a short value chain and sharing of produce in the community. Its location and season is specific, which means it's highly localized. Thus, diversity and nutrition in diet is guaranteed, and productivity of the food ingredient is maximized. It supports the local economy and local farmers, traders, and processors benefit. It supports local farming in terms of maintaining circularity in the food system. By byproducts and waste are returned to the farms, not disposed in a faraway landfill. In this manner, adhering to a traditional food culture can help improve income of local farmers and other players in the food value chain. Release food losses or reduce food losses make cheaper food available to consumers and promote environmental health. But what about the impact on nutrition and health of consumers? Is there a scientific basis for traditional food culture? Let's start with evolution science. Food culture and humans have evolved, mainly defined by the environment. Among environmental factors, food is the most intimate as it enters the body. Because of diversity of environments where humans live, there is an equal diversity of food cultures. Eskimos eat nothing but animals and seafoods for 10 months because they have no choice. They live in the Arctic region. The Maasai of Africa eat blood, milk, and meat of cattle as their landscape is predominantly grass and cattle. But they're one of the tallest people on earth, and they produce Olympic grade runners, the latest of whom is the marathon champion in the Tokyo Olympics. Pacific Islanders, including the Philippines, traditionally relied on fish and tropical root and tuber crops, coconut, and fish for obvious reasons, and tropical root and tuber crops to take advantage of the long growing season and resilience against typhoons. In the subtemperate and temperate regions, grain crops are popular because they require a short season and they have good storage quality. Many food crops are killed by the cold winter season. In countries whose geography cuts across vast latitudes, there is preference for spicy food in the warm regions. Spicy foods offer protection against gastrointestinal diseases caused by contaminated food. India is 38% vegetarian because of the influence of religion. They are no less healthy than omnivores or carnivores. Within one country, there is also a proliferation of food cultures. In the Philippines, fermented fruits and vegetables, or buro and bulalo, are common in Batangas. Ginataan dishes are common in Bicol with a lot of chili. Insect dishes can be found in Pampanga. Ilocanos eat a lot more vegetables than other ethnic groups. It may be of interest that insects, next to fish, are the most efficient converter of feed. It takes 1 kilo of feed to produce 1 kilo of insect. For fish, it is 1:1.5. By comparison, among the major sources of animal protein today, chicken is the most efficient with a feed conversion ratio of 1:3. There are clear patterns as well. Fish and seafoods are common in all regions of the Philippines except those in the highlands. This is consistent with the archipelagic nature of the Philippines. Diversity of rice and staples, that is traditional rice, show diversity in color, size, shape, and plant type. Corn is a traditional staple in Visayas and Mindanao, kamote in Batanes. Root crops and banana are known to precede rice and corn as staples in traditional Filipino diet. This food diversity reflects the diversity of environment in terms of altitude, latitude, elevation, rainfall, and typhoons and soil types. Pinakbet is common in the lowlands, chop suey in the highlands. With kambing and chicken, we eat everything except the hair. For kambing, we even eat the undigested grass. You may be amazed that there is such a variety of dietary patterns internationally and within one country, from one that is almost entirely carnivorous to vegetarian. All of them have supported an apparently healthy population, or at least they survive to this day. If carnivores are correct, we should have seen a mass extinction of vegetarians. If vegetarians are correct, we should have seen a mass extinction of carnivores. But nothing of this sort has happened. This gives us a clue on the importance of food culture. If you eat what your ancestors ate, you are in good shape. Forget for a while the debate between carnivores and vegetarians. We do not fully understand the glaring truth that people adhering to such diverse dietary patterns as existed in traditional food cultures live to see today. This is a fertile field for scientific investigation. But there are clues from literature. Dr. Catherine Shanahan, in her book, Deep Nutrition, tried to discover the common features among traditional diets in different parts of the world where populations are supposed to be healthiest and live longest, and came up with 4 patterns. I will be quoting liberally from Dr. Shanahan's book and refer to Filipino food as illustrations. First, a common feature among healthy diets is the use of sprouted seeds such as togi or sprouted mung bean. Fermented foods such as quesong puti, burong santol, bagoong, and puto. During sprouting, seeds metabolize anti-nutrients and produce bioactive compounds that are more nourishing. For example, gamma-aminobutyric acid or GABA, which is known to have beneficial effects on such abilities as memory and cognition. I imagine that if our school children are persuaded to eat sprouted seeds on a regular basis, the Philippines does not have to be at the bottom of ranking of countries in academic performance. During fermentation, probiotics are produced by microorganisms, enhancing the nutritional value of such diverse food as milk, rice, fruits, and vegetables. Don't forget wine and beer. These are also products of fermentation. There is more than alcohol in these ancient drinks. Traditionally, we have tapoy from Benguet, basi from northern provinces, and lambanog from coconut in Nipa areas. A second feature is the use of meat on the bones, such as the famous bulalo and sinaing na tulingan of Batangas. During slow cooking, nutrients are released from the bones, and among this is the family of molecules called glycosaminoglycans, which is a collagen, which are associated with health of joints, cartilages, and ligaments. They're also associated with health of the skin, hair, and nails. Minerals such as calcium, potassium, iron are also released. The trick is slow cooking. Third is the preference for offals, blood, liver, heart, intestines. Think of dinuguan, sinigang na ulo ng isda. Offals are the cheaper part of meat in the grocery, but they are the most nutritious, according to Dr. Shana. They are rich in fat-soluble vitamins, such as vitamin A, vitamin B1, B2, vitamin B6, folate, vitamin C, niacin, and pantothenic acid. Fish eye and eyes in general are a good source of vitamin A and lutein. This yaki juice in the eye is primarily hyaluronic acid, which is rich in glycosaminoglycans. It's good for your joints, and the brain and nervous tissues are rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Lastly, a common feature among healthy populations is the use of fresh or minimally processed ingredients such as grains, fruits, and vegetables, meat, and fish. Fresh products are safer to eat and more nutritious. A good example is rice. When minimally processed, such as in the form of brown rice. Rice is more nutritious and healthier than highly polished white rice. Shanahan's book is a good starting point for understanding the health benefits of our traditional foods. But there are new and not so new scientific knowledge that provide further understanding of the health impact of food. First is epigenetics. Food can influence gene expression, and there is a growing evidence that this influence is passed on to the next 2 or 3 generations. Thus, we may be doing fine today in spite of our bad food choices because of the healthy food choices of our parents. If we make bad decisions, however, we may not only harm ourselves, but our children and grandchildren as well. Second, the gut microbiome must be fed too. The population structure and the corresponding function of gut microbiome changes with the food we eat. Any drastic changes in food can negatively impact on the gut microbiome. It is now known that a diet rich in sugars, such as the Western diet, can alter the gut microbiome negatively. On the other hand, a diet rich in fiber can improve the population structure of the gut microbiome. We need to worry about the health of our gut microbiome because they influence our physical and mental health as well. What we do not get from food, our body makes. Example, glucose and cholesterol can be produced by the liver. Thus, we can get away with diverse traditional dietary patterns that may lack glucose and cholesterol without suffering from malnutrition. There are 3 consequences when traditional food culture is drastically altered. The first is metabolic syndrome, second, environmental impact, and third, rural poverty. Recent scientific literature has accounts of people from developing countries moving to Western countries and getting sick, acquiring the common ailment of their host population. The explanation is that none of these cultures have been exposed to the modern fast food diet that consists of highly processed grains such as white rice, meat, and unhealthy fats. Think of standard fast food menus. Added sugar, think of bottomless iced tea, and salt, think of snack chips. Today, we have a global epidemic of diseases associated with metabolic syndrome because we are experiencing mass migration to the Western diet. The number one cause of morbidity and mortality in the world today is not COVID-19. It is diseases associated with metabolic syndrome. But the shock is not limited to metabolic syndrome. It's also expressed as socioeconomic problems such as rural poverty and urban decay and deterioration of the environment. These shocks are felt worldwide with the massive switch to the Western diet over the last 50 years. We have a good idea of how these shocks came to be because of the need for a few species that are suited to a globalized food system, large-scale monoculture became the norm. This is true for crops, livestock, and fish. The result is resource depletion. Also, a result is pollution and global warming. The science behind the problems with large-scale monoculture and the so-called mass production practices associated with them is well known. So I'm not going to dwell on it at this time. Another impact is on rural poverty because we prefer to eat food produced elsewhere which are cheaper, more convenient, and tastier. When we eat instant noodles, we are really feeding the wheat farmers of America. Our local farmers could not compete with industrially produced food, so either they suffer in poverty or leave for the city, causing another problem, which is urban poverty. With regards to health impact, the good news is that studies The good news is that studies have shown that people recover when returned to their traditional food. This means that there is hope for us who are suffering from metabolic syndrome due to the adherence to the Western diet. But I do not have any idea to show that returning to traditional food can have a positive impact on poverty and the environment. I'm not aware of any experiment or any long-term study. My guess is that there will be a temporary increase in food prices, maybe even food shortages. The return is not going to be easy because we have embarked on the path to large-scale monoculture years ago, which has changed the structure of our farms and agricultural institutions. Today, more than 80% of our arable land is utilized for only 3 crops. Rice, corn, and coconut, and up to 70% of diverted water is used for irrigating rice. A more compelling justification for restoring traditional food cultures are existential threats such as the COVID pandemic, climate change, and another world war that can disrupt trade and commerce or otherwise reduce the supply of commodity foods. Moving away from paddy rice and beef commodity foods that are known for their greenhouse gas emissions can help reduce the impact of farming on global warming. Establishing a localized food system based on diverse food ingredients is the best guarantee for food security in the face of all these threats. A complementary strategy for dealing with pandemics such as COVID-19 is to improve the resistance of the human body against disease. This is provided by the better nutrition that traditional food provides. For this event, I have only one recommendation. This is for the College of Agriculture and Food Science to provide national leadership in reassessing, reinvigorating, or if needed, reinventing traditional food culture as a science-based approach to food system transformation and food security. It is a great challenge that only strong institutions such as the UB College of Agriculture and Food Science can passively take on. As you can imagine, this is a multidimensional challenge covering production, marketing, processing, culinary arts, and finally, the most challenging of all, altering consumption habits. Other units of UPLB may have to be recruited to help address these challenges. This recommendation is embedded in the NAST food system vision prepared by a team that includes Dr. Binglit and Dr. Rodel Maghirang, representing UP Los Baños. I hope that they can help formulate the needed programs for the desired food system transformation. Thank you and a good day.
Thank you, Dr. Rasco, for sharing your insights on the NAS food systems vision to the constituents of the college. Dr. Makilan will now gather the questions for Dr. Rasco.
Thank you, Jaya. Thank you very much, Academician Rasco, for sharing your ideas about food system transformation, specifically on developing traditional or local food systems. With this pandemic, being able to source our food locally means so much to us in this moment. But it's a massive and complex challenge addressing the entire food value chain. We need to encourage consumers to increase their consumption of traditional foods, strengthen local food markets, help farmers engage in this radical transformation. So, what do you think are the most important areas of focus to accelerate or promote the shift towards traditional food systems or traditional patterns of food consumption?
That's a difficult question, Dr. Makilang, I must admit. If you talk about the traditional food system, it's multidimensional. It includes production, it includes processing, marketing, food preparation, among other steps in the food system. So it's always a challenge that if we want to restore or reinvent traditional food system, then the question is where to start. Will it be in production, in food processing, food preparation, or in consumption? Of course, my immediate answer is we should start them all. Of course, that's not a very good answer. I will start with consumption because if we alter consumption habits from the present unhealthy trend to traditional food culture, then the farmers will follow suit. They are going to produce the food items that consumers will want to buy. So it's a cascade of consequences that we'll have to start from consumers. Of course, there's a role for chefs because many of our traditional foods are not really as appetizing as the fast food. So the chefs may have to come in. For example, in the case of Mabolo, one possibility is to invent milkshakes that include Mabolo. If you try that, I have tried it. It's really delicious, and I'm sure children will love it. So there's a role for everyone, and so thinking about this, I can imagine that it's not only the College of Agriculture and Food Science that will have to be involved, but also the other colleges in UPLB that are involved in the food systems.
Thank you for that answer, Academician Rasco. Now, here's the follow-up question from one of our participants regarding the role of the government. What are the concrete steps that you would propose to the government to revive or reinvent traditional food culture and to increase the awareness and acceptance of indigenous food crops?
Well, one of the first steps, I think, is already being done to some extent by government. It's only a matter of scaling up. I've seen initiatives in the area of crop diversification. For example, in the case of rice farms, there is a move through the research and development effort of the Philippine Rice Research Institute to introduce diversification. I'm sure many of us have heard of the Palayamanan program. The idea is to introduce high-value crops, livestock, and even fish in the rice system. The rice area is ideal for diversification for several reasons. One is that they have access to irrigation water, unlike other crop production systems like coconut or corn. Second, the rice areas have been provided with good roads, so it will be easier to transport food from these areas to the market. And lastly, as we know, rice has been the focus of government incentives. So the rice farmers are better prepared to experiment with such things as crop diversification. The main challenge, as far as I can see, is scaling up. We cannot achieve transformation with only 10, 20 farms with 1 hectare each going into diversification. There's no way we can achieve that on a nationwide basis. So the effort has to be scaled up, and I think the challenge here will have to fall on the local governments. And fortunately, next year, local governments will be provided with more funding that can be utilized for agricultural development, such as the crop diversification that I'm talking about. But again, diversification without shifts in consumer preference will only generate problems, because if the farmers cannot sell their vegetables because consumers don't want to eat them, then they will probably revert to rice. Back to you.
Great. Thanks for sharing your perspectives, Academician Rasco. So there's the Pinggang Pinoy, the one that's developed by FNRI DOST as a food guide for Filipinos. How is that similar or different from traditional food?
Pinggang Pinoy is really an approach towards guiding Filipino consumers about the proportion of different food groups that they should consume in order to get adequate nutrition. So the composition of this will vary from one place to the other and from one culture to the other. For example, one of the ingredients in the Pinggang Pinoy is vegetables. If you are in the mountain province, you will probably consume more of the temperate type vegetables like cabbage and cauliflower in the chop suey dish. But if you are in the lowlands, far from the source of cabbage and cauliflower and other temperate crops, you will probably be happier with pinakbet, utilizing the tropical vegetables like eggplant, ampalaya, and squash. So Pinggang Pinoy is quite flexible, and it can easily accommodate the traditional foods. Back to you.
Thanks, Academician Rasco. Now, shifting gears here to GM technology, we have a participant here who's probably involved in GM research. Question from Anthony Amores. Good morning po. How has this traditional food system become much relevant with regards to the contribution of GM technology to the livestock sector, knowing that there is a growing body of scientifically valid information that indicates safety of GM crops for feed use?
Well, reverting to traditional food culture is just one of the strategies for the transformation that we are looking forward to. I am not discounting mixing it up with modern technology, such as the use of GM crops. That's the last thing that we would like to do. Uh, uh, we need all the help that we can get from the science and technology that are available to us. There is no incompatibility as far as I can see. Traditional foods can be bred, just like the modern foods like rice and corn. And in the process of breeding, we can incorporate GM traits. So I don't see that as a constraint. What will probably be an issue is, traditional food is really rich more in fish and seafoods component rather than livestock. Well, this derives from our archipelagic nature, as you are aware. We have 7 times more water than land. And so it really makes sense historically and even in the future to get more of our protein from the sea rather than from the land. So the traditional food habits, like where I grew up, of eating fish and seafood 6 times a week and only meat on Sundays, it really makes sense. Perfect yung ratio. We have 7 times more water than land, so we should eat 7 times more protein from the sea than from the land. But what that means is that there will be less pressure for the livestock sector to grow because per capita consumption may have to decrease. Per capita consumption of meat may have to decrease. But they don't have to worry. This is a transformation that will take a long time. In fact, in our projection, it will take 1 generation or 30 years. And meanwhile, population growth will continue. And so even if per capita consumption of meat will decrease by adhering to a more traditional diet, then the overall impact on the livestock industry will be quite minimal because the volume required will remain the same. They may not grow, but they don't have to experience negative growth. Back to you.
Thanks, Academician Rasco. Okay, so the next question might be a good question to wrap up this Q&A session on traditional food systems. Now, you've mentioned that the consumer is the key driver for this sort of transformation. So if the consumer drives demand, what strategies could be implemented to promote stronger links between local foods and consumers?
Again, you can think of many approaches, and it will require cooperation from many sectors of society. I would look at formal and informal education as a long-term approach. Our children will have to be taught the consequences of their food choices. If they eat local food, they will be healthier, the farmers will be happier, and the environment will be better protected. But if they stick to the Western diet, which is the trend right now, they may have problems with their health, poverty in the countryside, and also environmental degradation. So this idea of food systems education must have to be incorporated from the earliest years of education. At the informal level, I can see the role of civil society in advocating for a return to traditional food culture. And this might include groups like the chefs. No? They have a lot to do. They can make traditional food more palatable and more acceptable, if not more nutritious than their components, depending on how they process them. So yeah, it requires collaboration from many sectors, and of course, let's not forget the R&D community that will try to explore more efficient ways of producing raw materials. Mabolo, can you produce it more efficiently than we are currently doing it? And so with the other components of traditional food. So we have a long and a lot of work ahead of us. And as I said, in the vision that we have formulated, we are calling for a 30-year implementation. Back to you.
Okay, thank you again, Academician Rasco, for answering all those questions and for the interesting presentation about the science behind traditional foods, bringing awareness to us consumers who are the main drivers for this sort of transformation. And thanks also to the participants who turned in their questions. Let me now turn you over to our lovely and lively host, Jaya. Back to you, Jaya.
Thank you, Dr. Makilan. I'm sure we've all learned a lot from the speakers for today's episodes. It is a privilege for CAPS to have both Dr. Rasco and Dr. Dar here today. We would also like to give a certificate of appreciation to our speakers. Please allow me to read the citation. For the certificate for Dr. Dar, the College of Agriculture and Food Science, University of the Philippines, Los Baños, College Laguna, Philippines, presents this certificate of appreciation to William D. Dar for serving as the resource person on the topic The Mind and Science Innovation during the APTv.6 Talks version 6 Viewpoints of the Forerunners, Future of Agriculture and Food Systems under the webinar program Rebooting Agriculture in the New Normal, held on the 10th of August 2021 via Zoom. Given this 10th day of August 2021 at the College of Agriculture and Food Science, University of the Philippines, Los Baños, College Laguna, Philippines. Signed by the chair of the CAPS Webinar Committee, Dr. Pompesi Santa Cruz, and the College Dean, Dr. Elpidio M. Agdisit Jr. And for the certificate to Dr. Rasco, the College of Agriculture and Food Science, University of the Philippines, Los Baños, College Laguna, Philippines, presents the certificate of appreciation to Eufemio T. Rasco Jr. for serving as the resource person on the topic The Mind and Science Innovation during the APTv.6 Talks version 6, Viewpoints of the Forerunners, Future of Agriculture and Food Systems under the webinar program Rebooting Agriculture in the New Normal, held on the 10th of August 2021 via Zoom and given this 10th day of August 2021 at the College of Agriculture and Food Science, University of the Philippines, Los Baños, College Laguna, Philippines. Also signed by the chair of the CAPS Webinar Committee, Dr. Pompe Santa Cruz, and the Dean, Elpidio M. Agdisit Jr. Flash on the screen right now, we have the QR code for the evaluation form. You may scan it using your cell phones to answer the Google Forms evaluation. We will also put the link on the chat box so you can click the link. Again, please answer the evaluation form to get your certificates via email. This was a very interesting episode as we wanted to start strong with Dr. Dar and Dr. Rasco as guest speakers. Every week, we'll have 2 episodes every Tuesday and Thursday for the month of August. For this coming Thursday, the speaker will be Dr. Acer B. Javier, speaking on the topic of transformational leadership for food security. So be sure to register for that webinar as well. To give the closing remarks, I would like to call on the beautiful OIC Director of the Institute of Plant Breeding, Dr. Fe M. De La Cueva.
Wow, Jaya, thank you for that. Okay, magandang umaga po, Chancellor Camacho, Dean Pids, and Secretary Dar, and of course, our academician, Dr. Rasco. Magandang umaga po. And alam ko po maraming natutuhan ng ating mga participants this morning. We learned a lot from your talks, and your talks are not only informative, but very challenging. Personally, I was touched by Dr. Dar's statement or question about our contribution to our municipality or to the whole province of Laguna, being the trailblazer in higher education, particularly in agriculture, were we able to contribute to the lives of the people around us. Nakaka-challenge, parang mapapaisip ka talaga. And academician Rasco, I always enjoy listening to your talks about food and nutrition. And ang daming learnings about your topic. And your message about traditional food should open the eyes not only of the present generations ng aming mga anak, but even tayo, even the young ones who had been influenced by our children. Nabaliktad na po eh. Before we influence our children, these days, they influence us. Lalo na po pag ayaw nating magluto or hindi na makaduluto. So give in to their request. Pa-deliver na lang po tayo. So sige na nga. Mas madali, di ba? So yon. Ang influence nila ay mas matindi kaysa influence namin ngayon. So yun lang. Thank you, Dr. Rasco, for your talk, and it made us aware of the consequences of the change in our food choices. Totoo po, we started eating brown rice and then mga kamote tops and tulingan. Malaki yung influence mo sa amin. And then Dean Pids, ito na po yung challenge ni academician Rasco. Sabi po ni Sir Dong Caps, gising, let's provide leadership in reassessing, reinvigorating, reinventing local food culture as a science-based approach to food system transformation and food security. Nako, Dean Pids, we have a lot of work to do, or we have a lot of planning ahead of us, but we believe that we can all do this together. So again, Dr. Rasco, Dr. Dar, maraming salamat po for sharing your viewpoints as the forerunners in agriculture. Thanks to all members of the webinar committee headed by Dr. Pompe, and to our attendees who actively participated by throwing in their questions. Sayang nga lang po at kukunti yung oras. Ang dami pa po doon sa ating Q&A box, pero kulang na yung time. Sana, anyway, there will be more of these webinars in the future, di ba, Jaya? So, meanwhile, wait lang po natin yon, and I wish everyone a safe and a blessed day ahead of us. Thank you, and see you again.
Thank you, Dr. Fe. I think Dean Agbisit would like to say a few words. Hindi na po, Dean. Okay po. Okay po. I hope you learned a lot as much as I did, as we had the privilege of learning from the DA Secretary William Dar and NAST academician Eugenio Rasco. We would like to acknowledge the organizers of this webinar series, the CAPS Webinar Committee, headed by Dr. Pompe Santa Cruz and co-chaired by Dr. Adelisa Dorado and Dr. Barbara Kawili. I think we have a problem with the evaluation form link. We will add the link to the Facebook page of the college, so please follow us on College of Agriculture and Food Science, UPLB, and we'll post the link on the comments. We would like to remind you of the next episode on Thursday. Dr. Acerbi Javier will be our speaker, and the topic will be on transformational leadership for food security. Stay tuned as we release more episodes in the AgriPeace Talks version 6, Viewpoints of Forerunners, the Future of Agriculture and Food Systems. Again, my name is Jaya Gabriel Lapis, and it was my pleasure to be your host for this morning. See you on the next session.